Hello, Spacers. Welcome to Starlight, a space opera. I'm Isaac, your host and GM for the adventures ahead. This show, whether you're watching or listening, is a labor of love, and one that we want to make the best for you. So if you can, take a moment to freely subscribe or share however is most comfortable for you. Thanks. Now let's plot a course to Starlight.
Breathe in and breathe out. Using your Neuralink to effectuate change to others or to even manipulate the nanobots within oneself is not for the wandering mind. Breathe in, breathe out. What do you see?
It's all black, except for... No, there's a halo of gray, but it's getting brighter. There are many knots to the outer ring. It's alive, moving.
That is the cipher-space coding that controls all that the Neuralink does. It's hard to believe, but in a way, the Neuralinks are a living entity themselves. And if one is smart enough, they can figure out how to manipulate it. But if one is wise enough, then they can figure out how to work with it.
I don't understand.
I didn't at first either. Let me tell you about the knots. There are 8 knots that represent the following. Conjuration, necromancy, but a word of caution. One that can never truly bring back the dead. And if they have a Neuralink older than the Staccato model, it won't work. Necromancy is simply to automate one's personality to their Neuralink, but it's no true life. Even the reborn think otherwise. Then there's evocation, followed by abjuration, transmutation, and divination. But please remember, numbers and patterns can only predict so much. We have enchantment, and the last knot you are most familiar with, illusion. Of these, some can physically manifest via nanobots, and others via a manipulation of another person's Neuralink.
Will it hurt when I make nanobots leave my bloodstream?
Of course it will, asteroid brain. Does it hurt when you are cut? It is like being cut 100 times over. But it pales in comparison to the glories that we manipulators of the world can do. But if you are afraid, let's focus on illusion. That you have done before. And I am ready for lunch. Do you see out that window? I want you to go out and make that little girl's day.
Okay. Hi, little girl. Do you want to see a magic trick? Oh no, don't be afraid. You see these flowers? They're for you. And if you like, I can even make them dance.
Really?
Really. Okay. Breathe in. 1, 2, 3. Exhale. Concentrate.
The flowers are alive.
Oh, I see, dear. Well done, young man. And outside of the arcane technomancy, it is always a good way to make some coin. Now let's go find a sandwich. I think the carnival master just hired a grilled cheese steak sandwich stand somewhere here. Hey guys, welcome to Starlight and this Q&A session. I wanted to jump in and let you all know that I am currently away up in the mountains. As a professional athlete, I go up to the mountains to train in the altitude. So unfortunately, I don't have my normal podcast set up. So you're going to notice, and it's my sincerest apologies, that there's going to be a lot less quality coming from my audio, but everyone else's is top notch. And we really hope that you enjoy what we have to offer today. There's a little bit of insight into the game, but some stuff for new players and new GMs. So without further ado, let's jump on over into this episode of Starlight Q&A.
All right. Welcome to Starlight, this Q&A section. We're glad to have you guys and kind of delve into the world building, the character building, and kind of hashing out what had happened. With us, we have both McKenna and Atlas. So go ahead and introduce yourself, starting with you, Courtney.
Hello, I'm Courtney, and I play McKenna Ali, your favorite elephant on two legs. Well, your favorite character as well, but, you know. Nathan, take it away.
All right, I'm Nathan. I play Atlas in the campaign right now. And, sorry, I was going to bring something up, but it's not important.
We'll do the roasting a little bit more on as we go, and we hope that you guys enjoyed that kind of first section, a little bit shorter than normal, but a good overview of technomancy and the quote unquote magic that's within the space operatic world of Starlight. So per usual, we're going to try and bounce around with some questions that kind of in Q&A between us and maybe a little banter that kind of gives you a little bit more insight to us and to everything we got going on with this project. So I am going to kick it off and we can, let's see. So I'll kick the question off first to Courtney, and then Courtney, you can pick whoever you want to do a question to next.
Okay.
So for you, we're going to start this off hot.
All right, I'm ready.
For McKenna, what was it like seeing Atlas take a knee or being put down?
It was joyous. It was wonderful. It was every dream that McKenna has ever had. Okay, well, honestly, it was nice to see his pride be checked a little bit. He's someone who claims to be able to take it all and do it all, and I do acknowledge that it was, I think, 3 against 1, 4 against 1, so he was outnumbered, but he was still taken down, and that was nice to see. As much as I love Atlas, it was...
I just gave him a chance.
What?
I just gave him a chance. I took a knee.
Oh, right. Yeah, you just took a little knee.
Breather.
No, he died, and then he was brought back to life, for the record. Just to clear that up. It was great. To answer your question in one word, awesome. Period.
Well, there's a little bit of tension in this, and I gotta ask, because you're all but gloating about it. Is it a pet peeve? Is Atlas a pet peeve for you as Courtney, or is it a pet peeve for McKenna? The bravado.
Pride in general is a pet peeve for both Courtney and McKenna. And so Atlas comes off as very, very, very prideful. So I feel like there's this desire to check him a little bit. Yeah. And so, as I love Nathan, and Nathan is not prideful at all, but Atlas definitely is. And so I like to keep that in check a little bit.
I will say one of my favorite moments, and I really hope that this is a fan favorite moment, when I was going through and doing some of the editing, was this part where, as Atlas is getting shot down by Gorn's blaster fire, Nathan goes, wait. It doesn't go down like this. And he goes, I turn and I'm distracted. And Courtney goes, and this should bother me. Why? Because it distracted me. And she's like, oh. Like, dude, she would have let you just bleed out on the ground.
For the record, I still don't know how I distracted you. Like, was it me just coming in the room that distracted you? Or was it me, like, asking what was going on that distracted you? What distracted you?
All right, so I'm thinking of this as like an audience member, right? They're all going to be on my side with this.
All right.
So basically, you think you see the scenario, right? Atlas is fighting these guys by himself, going full berserk and everything, and then something decides to blow through a stone wall, right? Because this is all happening in seconds, right? And like, so something decides to blow into a stone wall, make a lot of noise, fling big stones and stuff at you. So he looks, right? And when he takes that look, he's obviously thinking about it. And this is scenario. Obviously for us it took a while, but in the scenario, this was all like seconds, right? And then he gets shot down because he wasn't paying it. He had to look at the new threat coming out of a big old stone wall.
Okay.
So he had to take his knee and take a breather.
Let's ask the audience what they would do in this scenario. You hear your friend getting their butt kicked on the other side of a wall. Do you just sit there and listen? Or do you do what you can to get through? I feel like the right thing is to like do what you can to get through. I would be a terrible, awful friend. I don't want him to die, but I was kind of glad he did die. But, you know, like, he didn't actually die. He just took a knee. But it was, yeah, nice. Really quite nice. Anyways. Okay, my turn to ask a question so that Alice doesn't hate me later. Okay, we're talking about Atlas's pride. And so actually one of my questions was like, what is the history that got him to be so prideful?
Of like why he's like,
or like
so
confident,
confident? Or?
Yeah. Is it because
like overly
like,
confident in a sense?
Yeah, because I get the like confidence in the connection with the Acers, like that I can register, but I don't get the confidence in like the I can face anyone and do anything and I can go 3-on-1 against one person who has like 3 blasters and yeah, I'm gonna be fine. Like, where does that confidence come from?
All right, so it's not really a huge spoiler. This is gonna be a little. You obviously have to give little crumbs and everything occasionally. Okay. So as you know, when he's taking off like the jacket and everything, there's that big like tattoo that covers his whole back. So what some people know, which is come out of the story, is that some people know is that it belongs to like the Berserker like family, which is a part of the Acers. So a lot of their idealism, as far as, and then like him growing like overconfident, is that it's almost like they're. Obviously, it's not. Sorry, I heard some reverse noises in the back of my house. But basically, it's like there's. With them, I believe it's like an ideology kind of thing of like they're like the front line, so they almost. How would you see it? Actually, I would compare it almost to. I mean, I don't want to compare it completely to the Marines because. I mean, it's similar though, in a sense of like, or just like the military in general. It's like a sense of you are trained in like around a bunch of people that are just like you in a sense, right? And so like Atlas with his like family and stuff, obviously there's a lot of backstory and everything, but with his time with them and like becoming a berserker, he kind of just it kind of just grew on, like it's like, almost like a persona. You kind of like grow, it grows on you in a sense, and then you build that confidence though through like, because as like, okay, flashing back all the way to like the first few episodes, right? We remember that the pilot, my old pilot, sad story, but my old pilot did mention that I was one of the few that have gone like on many missions and back. So Atlas himself is just, he is accomplished with the Berserkers in general, or with the Acers. So I think just, it's a mix between, sorry, I'm like rambling, but it's a mix between basically him building that confidence just because of his, like his just merit in a sense. Like he's gone on a lot of these missions. He normally goes alone, has come back alive, has completed them. And then also, though, it does come with a sense of almost, because of his background, which that part I won't dig into too much, but because of some of his experiences, it's a mix between his pride and like confidence, and also just, I mean, this is going to be kind of a big problem, but also just kind of not caring. Like he just, like if like his job is, if he has a job or has something, that's kind of just his purpose. Like he's sent to do something, so he does it. But yeah, he doesn't really have.
So it's
that's why I think that's why you get like taking the overconfidence or prideful like kind of attitude. It's more that he is very confident, but also he just has a lack of, I think, a lack of almost care for himself. Like he kind of just completes what he needs to do.
So it's like a mix of like culture that like brought him up to be that, and just like success over and over again that just reiterates that. Does that sound?
Yeah, in a sense.
Yeah,
basically, because like if you're gonna meet, if you ever do meet another like Acer, like a Berserker with the Acers, they're not. I'm not saying they're gonna be the same guy. They're definitely not gonna be the same person. Everyone's different, but I'm pretty sure they will probably be definitely less of the like sly, like sneaky or soft-spoken kind of people.
That makes sense.
If they are, you probably should run.
Yeah.
Yeah. If they get into that mode, then they're probably just growling or doing grunts or something.
Yeah. Cool. That makes sense. Thanks for explaining that.
And I just want to add in that you say Atlas doesn't care about much, and I completely, you see that. I completely agree. I will add in the caveat, there is one thing that he cares about, and it is he cares a whole lot when McKenna tries to say that she's his girlfriend.
Oh,
okay.
That was such a sweet. It could have been so funny. And you were like, nope.
Just to clarify, no. So Atlas, and I think that I've tried to portray that in the game too, is that Atlas doesn't. What I meant kind of is like Atlas. The reason he's so confident or so like doing like kind of going off what Courtney said, is going like 1v3 or whatever else, is that he doesn't care too much about himself, like his well-being. But as we've seen, or hopefully the audience has noticed, is that he does, like, obviously not openly, but he does care for like some of the people that either, well, this part's gonna sound bad, but people that have worth, or also just people that he sees as being somebody that he's spent time with, because like even people that he hasn't, because if they're innocent or whatnot, because as like Pillow Man or whatever, Atlas 100% could have just grabbed him and thrown him in. Like, I'd probably honestly, if I obviously rolled high and everything, but if I didn't, like, it probably would have had a higher chance because it's flesh, like it's a human. But he also, in the beginning too, like he threw the pillow, obviously he took the pillow, but also he told Pillow Man to like basically throughout the whole thing to like stay near him. Yeah. And like stay behind him. So yeah, he, just to clarify, he doesn't care much about himself, of like his well-being, of like he just needs to complete the assignment or task. But yeah, he definitely has some sort of care. But he also has that mentality of obviously being a part of a a family or a organization,
That makes
slowly, bit by bit, we're seeing a little more and more to Atlas,
Yes.
which has been kind of fun. So
Yeah. I feel like the difference between McKenna and Atlas is McKenna's like, here I am, take me as I am. And Atlas is like behind 20,000 locks and is like, you're never going to get to me. Yeah.
yeah, he's like,
I like it.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
All right, your turn, Nathan.
All right, let me. Do I want it for my first question to be towards Isaac or me? Okay, I'll actually go towards Courtney or McKenna.
Okay.
Okay, so obviously everyone knows. I'm bringing this back. I know it's like it's beating a dead horse at this point. Hopefully, no one's offended by that. I just grew up with the kind of saying. I did think about that before I said it. Is that basically with McKenna? Does she actually believe that some of her actions were not related or similar? Not related, but not similar to being a terrorist.
Oh, 100%. McKenna doesn't identify her actions as part of a terrorist group. She identifies it, or what she did, her mission was always to move the what is it called? The path? Yeah, the path forward. I should know that. So her heart and soul has always been like, what can I do to move the path forward? And Naguvu's heart and soul is where things got like sideways and twisted and like kind of went the wrong direction. But I think everything McKenna did was always with the intent of moving the path forward and bringing Loxodon society back to the real world. Whereas like her partner in crime had other intentions, and those intentions seem to have trumped hers. And there's this moment where her daughter is sacrificed and she realizes like, oh, this has gone far too far. And I don't know if I can be a part of this. And now like what she's gone to do is to find the Sunmaker to help kind of provide clarity, if you will. Like, why did you leave? And what are you doing? And kind of, hoping to learn from him. And they were friends. They were really close friends, but she also looked up to him quite a bit.
Were they just friends?
Yes. That is Nathan. They were just friends. And so that's
what they
where
all say. That's what they all say. It's okay.
we can call it Trump.
Here's the thing. So Naguvu this is like kind of giving a spoiler. So anyone who listens to the Q&A, you get this spoiler. Naguvu, like, kind of have this, what is it called when you like want to spread only your genes?
Narcissism? Narcissist?
Kind of.
I mean, yeah, but
there's-
that,
I mean,
I know there's actually a word for it.
There is
yeah.
a word for it. I don't remember.
we can just call it the Genghis Khan effect.
Yes. Anyways, so
Yeah.
like he wanted to be like the reproducer for every Loxodon. So like every child Loxodon was an offspring of him. And most women Loxodons like in that area had sex with him to have their children.
He's a Chad.
Yeah. And so
Okay.
that is her daughter. That's the case for her daughter as well. I know. And then he sacrificed his own daughter, right? Awful.
Is he a good-looking Loxodon?
No. Well, yes. He's big and powerful and like large and has
I
golden
bet.
tusks. That's attractive too. That is attractive to Loxodons. I mean, the more
emphasis on
gold
large.
your tusks and the Isaac and the big. Let's take it further. The bigger the trunk, the better. And so
Oh,
he
makes sense.
yeah, a lot of his like the reason a lot of Loxodons listen to him and look up to him is because of his physical attributes.
Okay.
Yeah. So to answer your question, yes or no, McKenna does not associate a lot of her direct task with a terrorist organization, although she does recognize that a lot of what the organization she's a part of was doing could be identified as like a terrorist act.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Okay.
In a way, she was almost kind of like a little brainwashed, right? And
Yeah.
slowly woke up from a bad dream and just kind of like, oh shit, what was I a part of?
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly what it is.
That's,
Okay.
so really, I mean, we call her a terrorist, but her story is really, she's a tragedy story.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although Atlas would never see that. Anyways.
Atlas?
Well, you,
Who knows?
yeah.
What?
I was gonna say, well, you haven't. To be fair, you know, you haven't had this like moment with Atlas, so you don't know. You know, you
Yeah.
don't know.
I haven't danced with him yet,
Not happening.
but it's coming.
Alice doesn't dance.
It is coming.
I imagine Atlas being very bad at dancing, very awkward.
Honestly, yeah. He's just a big dude. Like he's not very elegant.
Yeah. He'd be like a box dancing.
Probably.
Do I get to ask Isaac a question now?
It's you. It's whoever you want
Okay.
to ask.
You know those nursery rhyme books that we found the maps in?
Yes.
Those were like really tainted versions of those nursery rhymes, if I remember correctly. Why
Kinda.
did you do that? Where did that come from? Like, and then you like really, I don't remember them exactly, but you really took a new spin on those. Do those have like overarching kind of, effects in the world, or like, are they based on history, in the world?
No. Nope. No
No?
overarching effect. Yeah. No thematic foreshadowing there. Maybe someone will listen to this and be like, oh, well, 20 episodes from actually, if you go back and like that sheep had something to do with episode whatever. No, that'd be an accident, but I'll take credit for it if it happens. I don't think they were that twisted. The third one was maybe a little twisted, but the rest were fine. And why? That's a better question. The why is because, and I fortunately I can't actually spoil this, but I will say that Gorn is a very, very complicated being. And so one of you is in a position to find out more about that eventually, and we'll find out more on this in February as you guys can our listeners can see which one of you will be finding out more about Gorn's personality. But he's strange, and probably a little off his rocker, whether that's his fault or not. And so there's definitely like a childish element to his personality. And so, yeah, it's just kind of like one of those things that he has. But also it's something you wouldn't think to hide a secret in. So there's kind of that element too, is it's like, it's children's books. Like you could just easily have gone over it. And it was good that Clive was like, oh, hey, McKenna, you should like open that up and hack the Neuralink.
Yeah.
That was actually a good idea, because you guys I don't think you almost didn't do that. And then you wouldn't have any information on where to go. So
I don't think I would have thought to, like, I don't even think I knew that I could hack a Neuralink of a book.
Well,
So
it wasn't the Neuralink. You were hacking the computer element within the spine.
Yeah. I didn't even know that was an option.
Yeah.
That's a very cool, like, small, just world building thing I wouldn't have thought of.
Well, it's also space opera where the science really doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It was cool.
yeah. So that's about all I have for you. But this is a question for both of you, and we can start with Nathan, and then it'll go to Courtney. So this question is really to help GMs who are like maybe newer to the game or planning their own game or even having the scenario that I'm going to lay out come up. But what do you guys as players think of player death? And I asked that question because you did take a knee, Atlas, and I want to know, in your opinion, well, he didn't die. He was knocked out. I got his back here. I want to know, in your guys' opinion as players, what makes a good death and what doesn't make a good death from a player's perspective?
Okay, I'll go first on what makes a bad death. For me, because I know we've spoken about it a little bit before, is basically that death is a very necessary thing, I feel like, in D&D games, or at least the fear of it. Because, I mean, that's not really where I'm going with a bad death, but basically is that with a bad death, I feel like is when DMs are like headhunting. Like, some DMs feel like they have to like almost force a death sometimes on parties, because of whatever reasons. And that's when I find, or like they feel like it'd be, some people may think it's actually more fun, in that sense, because they're trying to like make death like a very real thing in a sense of like trying to like push it to happen. And I feel like it's just bad when the DM almost how do I explain it? It's bad when the DM like forces it to happen, like has no opportunities, like had no warnings. I mean, other than slight warnings, like you're fighting a boss or something. But like, there's like no warnings really, or like there's no chance. Like, there's been a lot of ones, I'm not going to name them. But there's been a lot of other campaigns I've listened to here and there. Obviously, like the real popular ones, but also kind of like some niche ones and everything. And also just hearing stories about people's campaigns. I like to listen to this other guy on YouTube. I can't think of his name right now. I'd actually say it, but he does a lot of stuff on like stories about campaigns he's been in, right? Listeners might know who I'm talking about, but he does a lot of like stories and things on campaigns he's been in, like interesting stories or interesting experiences or bad experiences. And that was one of the things, was that when DMs are trying to force it to happen and don't give like the player an opportunity to make their death saves, or like they're just dying repeatedly. That's another thing. That's another bad way to do it, is that they're just dying repeatedly. But I mean, that could be the player's fault, to be honest too. A lot of times it is. Player doesn't think about. People have to metagame in a sense. Like if you know your class is squishy, don't go up in the front lines like Atlas would. But yeah, I keep rambling. Basically, to sum it up, a bad death, in my opinion, is when a DM basically forces it to happen. Or like, to be honest too, I'll be honest, when traps, depending on what type of trap, right? If it's like, perfect example, I'll bring it back to Critical Role's thing, right? They did the death of Vex. Yeah, it was supposed to be for Vex. And then obviously Vax made a deal. But that one, it was good in a sense because it was a very crucial moment, right? They're looking for these vestiges. I can't say that word. Vestiges.
The vestiges?
Yeah, I can't say that word. They're looking for these things, knowing that they're like these very powerful artifacts. And I think what it was that the party was getting too comfortable, and they didn't even check, like didn't inspect it, didn't do anything. They just pushed it open and like the coffin or the thing and everything. So like that, people might think is, oh well, they didn't give him a chance or anything. But it's like, there's a lot of subliminal messages here and there of like, okay, like this is what you're looking for. This is very dangerous. This and that. But what I'm thinking of with traps and stuff is like, say like that trap we were in that one episode, right? If it just like insta killed. Remember when we were initially going through the temple? I mean, it wasn't really a trap. I mean, the guy said it. He set it off, but was more like the sense of like like obviously I could see someone being downed because of damage or anything, but not insta die, like especially with like so soon in the campaign. But also just the trap wasn't like some vestige that had all overwhelming power, like so.
And the setup of that trap was a little different too. The setup of the trap was an infrared line, and McKenna took the lead, and she pretty much took up the whole entire chamber as you're walking through, which made it hard for you guys to see it.
Yeah, and then like obviously I can't remember, did one of us get downed?
In the fight, not from the trap.
In the fight, yeah, not from the trap, yeah. But it's like, even if we did get down, like I would understand that. But if you decided, okay, you're dead, like the trap kills you, no way ever, like you're just dead. I would have been, I would have kind of been just like, wait, what? Like this type of trap? What?
Yeah.
So it's like that kind of stuff. I'll try to make it quick. Basically, yeah, it's basically when a DM forces it, and there's no chance of living. Like, there's really no chance. There was no messages. There's no warnings. It was just, oh, they do this and you're dead. Like, unless you're super far in a campaign, you're versing like Vecna. Yeah, I understand, but yeah, not. Yeah, it's basically when DMs are headhunting. It's a bad death when they're intentionally trying to kill their players, not just letting the story play out and potentially die. But I'll bounce in front of that. I keep rambling on the same thing. So a good death, in my opinion, though, a good death is when I feel like, well, it's basically the opposite. Yeah, it's when a DM, like the story is going, the players are going through the story. The DM is obviously giving them that story, feeding them that story and everything, and giving them options. And it almost feels like a good death is when it almost feels natural. Like basically, like it can be, there's this big fight going on, and yeah, sadly it's like someone's getting hit pretty hard or whatever, and the players are playing their characters, right? And sadly, due to the roles and things like that, maybe someone dies, but it was more natural. There was a chance of survival. The person was their character, if you were like looking from their eyes of them, were trying to survive in this fight, protecting their comrades or just getting what they want, but like in a sense, but it happens almost in a natural sense. It's not forced. It plays in the story to where it feels like you're almost reading a novel. I think that's why a lot of people do like campaigns too, is like it has that same sense of you're getting a story and you're getting a bunch of different personalities and different situations, where yeah, it just feels like, okay, this person died because of this and this, or like these events led up to it, kind of thing. So yeah, a good death to me is like where it just feels natural, and it's definitely a sucky thing for the character sometimes, but at the same time, I think it builds a lot for the story, like if they just died naturally through like the course of events.
And what about you,
also
Bernie? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, my last super fast thing was just, there are players that want their characters just to die if they just don't like their character. I mean, that happens in some campaigns. And if a DM can do that, and this is another challenge for DMs, though, a DM can do that without making it obvious, and also kind of, I mean, I don't want people to get the wrong idea. Yeah, when they force it, if a DM forces it for the player, I don't see that as really a bad death, as long as it plays in the story well, as long as it's not like something that doesn't fit with the story.
And I found that, the way to do that well is the difference between, like you said, forcing into a bad death and doing a death where like the player wants to say goodbye to that character, is it's a collaborative thing. Like you give the player some leeway into how they want it to be, and like maybe even ask the player like, oh, how, like, would you want to potentially introduce a plot hook with this as we bring in a new character? And it's more of like that kind of collaborative storytelling between you and that player, where you and that player work together on the side And in a way, that player then becomes a GM for that moment as they bring that story then back to the others, for the delight of others.
Yeah,
but yeah,
exactly. But that was my last thing. Sorry.
So when I think of like a good death and a bad death, I think of something I think of what progresses the story, kind of long term, because I'm with D&D, I'm always in it for the long haul. So, for example, I had a character, her name was Sigra Shilan, and I think this was one of the best deaths that I've yet to seen. And she was a character who was maybe too compassionate and too willing to like go and help others. So she went into a house. They were kind of scoping it out. They were looking around. She went into this room where there was this goblin, Alfiris, who was like basically on the ground tied up. And her, like the way she would respond to that is to just go in there and like make sure he's okay. She didn't investigate. She didn't look around. She walked in, and then there's people on the balcony above shooting arrows at her as she's walking in. And she went down. And then Alfiris, the goblin, was like, as she's dying, he's like, friend? And like, asks that he has a friend. And she dies confirming that. And then it was supernatural. This was not planned ahead of time, but then I got to play Alfiris. Because I didn't really have a character in mind. I wasn't planning on Sigra dying. And I got to play Alfiris. So there's this incredible storyline there that progresses the story forward as far as like, A, why is this goblin tied up? B, why does he think someone who's being shot by 10 arrows is a friend? C, why is he only saying friend? And there's so many different things to like figure out from there. So I think a death that progresses the story forward is really, really important. And the death of a character that is loved, I think is important too. So, like if you start playing a character like, really briefly and the character dies, that's obviously not going to be as impactful as if you've played a character for years and that character dies in a really epic way. So I think that's important just for DMs and players too. Like, don't kill your character right away. Play them out. And then a bad death, I would say it's one that happens too quickly. I think it just doesn't help the storyline. And B, one that doesn't cause something else to happen. So I love the deaths that like they die and then something else big happens that progresses the storyline. So I think when a character dies, it's the opportunity to progress the story further, and do something with that death, even if it's unexpected. So I think on the DM side, your other characters are obviously invested in that character and they're going to be sad that he or she died. And so to use that to progress your story forward, it could be really intriguing. Yeah.
Okay. So very, very story focused. And for DMs that are listening who are kind of like getting into this, I might be putting words into your mouth, Courtney. So tell me if I am.
Yeah.
But story doesn't necessarily have to mean the story that the GM is putting out there. Every character has like a background story as well. So like you could be progressing their own personal characters change in their story or their development. And then I have one last thing just to protect myself, because going back to Nathan and saying no headhunting, I was not headhunting Sigra.
I know.
She made it sound like she walked into a room and was ambushed by a trap. She knew very well what the consequences were. Like she knew there was a trap being laid. They heard the men like preparing, like they succeeded in a lot of perception checks and were able to pretty much know that there was like a crossbow ambush waiting, and she still tried to run in and save the goblin.
But it was so in her character too. Like it made so much sense. And I guess I wasn't thinking like, is there going to be enough arrows to kill her? But they were. But I loved playing Alfiris. I wouldn't have changed that for the world. Okay, is it my turn to ask a question?
Yeah.
Okay. Nathan, how did you feel about being put down? I wanted to ask it in that way too. Because you were put down. Passed out.
Yeah.
Died. Needed backup.
I think
Alone. Scared. Vulnerable.
I honestly, when the first fight started happening, when before you got there with the one little wacky robot, and then because I don't know, yeah, you weren't there for some parts of it. So, right before that, I kind of actually saw myself potentially, like I was trying to like calculate in my head, like because I had the painkillers and everything else. I was like, how am I going to get through this? Like, because yeah, but right before you were involved, I had to fight this other robot. Mm-hmm. And that was it wasn't really hard, but it was definitely I was getting some bad rolls. Mm-hmm. And then you didn't see my beautiful Hercules moment either. When this, like, what would you describe it as, Isaac? Like,
it was like this, like, well, if you know what a bullet is in the monster manual, it was a bullet, which is like these kind of like, they have the nickname of being land sharks, and they burrow through the ground, and Atlas got covered with this white powder, which actually was a lure for the bullets that live on Thala Colony. And so it was drawn right to him, and it came right out of the ground at him.
Oh no!
Yeah. So yeah, when it came out of the ground, right? So I was thinking to myself, because in that moment, I think I already had raged. Yeah, I was still raging, so I still had some of my traits that you saw obviously coming in. Mm-hmm. And then Atlas got a pretty good roll, I believe, at the time. And so when it came at me, right, and all Atlas sees is turns and sees like the ground breaking and everything. And then it was honestly one of my favorite moments because it was sick. But it was like it comes out of the ground and big old jaw and everything. And Atlas like grabs like its upper like part of its mouth, you know, and then the lower. It does a complete like Hercules thing and just like grabs it and like basically stops it from like eating him and just muscles it in a sense.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was a really cool moment, especially in my head too, because how I was imagining it. But
you should draw that.
Well, I don't know if you
once I get better, yeah.
Heard it. I don't know if you heard it, but it was like that was one of my favorite moments too, and it turned out so beautiful on the podcast.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Because yeah, it just like, and then like so then afterwards, obviously like, kind of like muscles it to the side and like bites off its like one of its eyes and, yeah, it was. And then okay, so then when you got involved, it was basically after that all happened, right? Atlas is already kind of feeling it, and then correct me if I'm wrong, Gorn and his 2 or 3 or 4 people, robots come in. Well, yeah, so then that happened, and then, and then so basically, he's confronted with them, and then that's where obviously you started getting involved. But yeah, he's already, I kind of honestly was thinking as like a player, I was like, all right, like, I might be knocked unconscious pretty soon. Like, if I get some unlucky rolls. I was like, all right, what would Atlas is just going to keep fighting. Like, he's not going to run, especially because he's berserk or he's raging.
Yeah.
And then, I'd say my feelings of being knocked out, I think in that moment, I kind of was just expecting it. I was going to say I would be very lucky if I wasn't, like, knocked out. Mm-hmm. If it didn't happen. Because I started realizing, I was like, oh, shit, I'm actually going to get unconscious, like knocked unconscious pretty soon. Mm-hmm. And then with how many there were, I was like, oh, I'm definitely going to get knocked unconscious. Like, I was like, there is no way.
I will say you lasted for a long time, like longer than I expected. So I will give you the one compliment. and say that I'm impressed by that.
Mhm. And you decapitated one, so
Yeah.
Yep, that is true. Alice, I was just gonna keep fighting, and then, so my feelings about it, I kind of expected it, just because, like I said, there was a lot of stuff leading up to it, and then, at the same time, though, I wasn't too bothered by it, because I knew, obviously, once you went through the wall, too, I was kind of like, alright, if he gets knocked unconscious, and then, they kind of, I don't know, I didn't just expect Isaac to obviously have the enemies leave, but, at the same time, though, too, I was like, okay, there's backup, like, there's a chance. I was like, all right. I knew in my head, I was like, I'm not gonna die. Like, I'm not gonna actually, like, die here. I mean, there's a chance of it, because if I failed my... That's kind of what we were talking about earlier. If I failed my death saving throws, I mean, that technically was on me, because I confronted every single enemy that I found. Like, I wasn't careful when pursuing the traps and the monsters. I failed on a really bad roll with hacking something, and which is not my forte. And so yeah, he definitely, like, I definitely saw it, but I was like, okay, like, Alice isn't gonna die here. And then also knowing that you guys were coming, I was like, okay, Clive can heal me, it's fine. But yeah, it was definitely, I would admit, it was stressful in a sense, because I was like, to be 100% honest, like I said, I didn't expect to die, but I knew there was a chance. So I was already slightly planning a character in my head. Like, what? I literally was, because, like, you have to,
unfaithful.
Like, no, I love Atlas. Like, I 100% didn't want him to die, but I was like, okay, if he dies here, though, I definitely need something to like, because I didn't want to just, and kind of like you were talking about, I actually, like, in my mind, I was like, okay, what can build off of Atlas's, like, story kind of sense. I was like, what would make sense? And I already had the idea, which I'm not going to say because it's a big spoiler on the whole, like, story of Atlas, but I already had, like, exactly what the character was going to be.
No, well,
all right, better question, who it was going to be, and they're actually in the story or in the world somewhere. Yeah.
Interesting.
I think I might have an idea, but I will say, you mentioned that you were surprised that they ran, and it was the circumstances that led to them running was, so I rolled a morale check for them because they're low level, even though they outnumber you. Here's the thing. So what they saw, so Gorn obviously set up that robot to ambush you, and the core thing about that robot ambushing you originally was it was never going to kill you. That wasn't the goal of it. Although it got a lot of really good hits and you got a lot of really bad rolls.
I was so unlucky. Yeah.
The main thing it was supposed to do was destroy what the majority of the things that were in the room, and it was supposed to, like, get that lure, that dust on you to draw, one of the natural predators. So Gorn knew you killed that robot. You chased Gorn off originally from the ambush, advanced on him down the hallway as as he was firing at you, and this is like, he has no way of knowing that the trap that was set for anybody who didn't know about it. Like, he wouldn't have known that it affected McKenna, not you originally. And then this monster thing comes out. They watch you in its mouth, and you're wrestling with it all the way down the passageway. You throw it to the side, basically, after ripping out its eye. And they they shoot at the temple entrance, where there's, like, some, like, essentially, like, dynamite, right? Or, like, C4, and it blows up and covers the entrance to cut off your, like, backup. So at least then they have, like, okay, he's weakened, he's taking pain pills, but you have to imagine, like, what they see. They see you in, like, your beast mode, where you literally have grown nails, fangs, you have this, like, spine tail coming out of you, and you should be dead, but you're not because of pain pills. So the image of that is, like, horrendous. You one hit cut off someone's head after getting shot, and, like, that's why after I rolled a morale check, they failed, and I was like, that's when the guy's like, how are you still standing? And then McKenna blows a hole through the wall, and the backup's there. Like, they were completely rattled. It like made more sense.
That makes
for them
sense.
to, like, run.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense.
Goran using his influence to basically, like, if he can't take care of you in the temple, then knowing that you'll go back into the city and using his influence within the police to frame you for something that maybe you guys didn't do. So
that is crazy to think about. Also, it makes me, honestly, when you explained the whole situation out, that did actually make it sound even better in my head. Just like the whole situation, because it was sick. Also understanding why they like ran off. Yeah, I'd run off too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He framed us.
Huh?
What?
I didn't even realize it was him who framed us.
Oh, I mean, come on.
I didn't. Oh, why are you traveling with him?
Why am I what?
Oh, spoilers, Courtney.
Yeah.
Sorry. Spoiler alert: Alice joins the dark side.
No. Alice was always a part of the dark side. Come on now.
Okay, next.
Also,
question.
wait. Crap. Now I'm thinking in my head.
Sorry.
I don't want to give out any spoiler either, though. Now I'm thinking about it, though. Nah, I'll just leave it to myself then. I was thinking of the whole situations.
You can keep it for the next session, next Q&A.
Alice is. I love Alice. That's why I'm really, really happy he didn't die. But I will admit, he definitely knows that he is mortal. Like he.
Good.
Well, kind of.
It's good for him.
All right, Nathan, you're up for the next question.
Alrighty. This will be more for Isaac. And this is also for the fact that, like, with DMs and everything, this is also to help them in a sense, I think, too, is that obviously... Oh, wait, that is a spoiler, I think. I mean, Courtney already did it.
Yeah.
Actually, no. No, well, I won't give out a spoiler. Basically, when, like, you know how we did, like, my episode, and then, like, it was McKenna and Clive, in the temple.
Mm-hmm.
For you, for, like, DMs, too, and just also players, in a sense, recommendations, too, with that, because obviously you definitely want the stories to somewhat probably line up again. Mm-hmm. What is your advice on trying to, like, play two separate, the same campaign, but two separate parties, like, splitting? Like, and also, how difficult is that? And also just, advice for other people, players and DMs, just in general.
That's a good question.
I mean, that is a good question, and it's kind of a tough one. Part of it is going to be on your comfort level as a GM. It's obviously way easier to do I think it's almost easier to do when, like, your players are sitting together, where you can kind of go back and forth, like, every 5 minutes, because then, like, they at least know where the direction the story is going. But when you have two separate sessions, you have players who, like, might take it somewhere completely different, not knowing where the story's going. So that can add a whole new layer depending on, like, just how it's happening, whether it's happening at the table and it's just splitting with everyone there, or if it's or you're getting, like, an actual totally separate session. And my first thing is it doesn't work with every player. And obviously not every GM is going to feel comfortable with it. But the first thing is you have to be able to read the room on your players. Like, you guys are really super mature, super easy to do this with, and very focused. But there are players who just, like, want to have a good time, in terms of, like, just everything's kind of funny and, like, they want to break the world, and, like, that's like herding cats, and it can be kind of hard. And so you need to, like, vet your players and make sure they're kind of, like, that's something they want to do, like, and can handle. But I will say, like, what I found, even if you have players like that, which thankfully I haven't really actually had many players like that, if you can get like some sort of investment on their side, whether like what Courtney was talking about before, like, for her, she has a huge investment just furthering the story. But if there's some sort of, like, personal element in there, that's always, like, that usually cinches the deal. So like, I know for like when we were running the game for you, Nathan, like, man, getting to use like your level 3 rage and being able to like actually have your character like do a full transformation, like I knew that was going to be key to like your investment in that. And so like making sure that there was like real challenges that fit Atlas, because like it wouldn't have been that fun of a game, I feel like, for you if you were just like one shot KO'd things and like didn't like there wasn't like the challenge. Like I know that you enjoy that, and so like identifying what your players enjoy and what they're looking for. Now as for the timing of bringing it back together, I think you just can't force it. You have to know your story, and you have to know your world and your characters pretty loosely, because you can't. Well, you could railroad your players back together, and that's not that hard to do. But there's going to be more gratification if your players can kind of like spend their time doing it without feeling forced out of the situation. And depending on what happens in game, that could be hours, days, weeks. And so being prepared to potentially run multiple games separately. And there's like a couple ways to go about that. If it's looking like it's really just going to be like a matter of days or time, then just, yeah, there's no, like, it's super fine to run a couple games that are separate, and your players are going to love it because they're going to have a totally separate story. It's going to be really cool when the players come back together, because they'll spend that first game back together. Half the time they'll just spend it talking about what happened and planning and stuff like that. And so they almost create their own plot hooks. And information gets lost or mixed up, and they really have to parse it out, which is a game in itself. If you're going to have, let's say, one character or a few characters split off, and it's going to be like months in game, which could actually translate to months out of game, yeah, you don't want to play separately from your, like, have your players split up that long. That's not fun. Mm-hmm. So what my go-to thing to do is to relegate part of that, like figure out what the main body of the party is doing, or what the most important party thing that is happening, like the main storyline. Because usually players that branch off like that, they're usually following like a personal quest or something like kind of like on its own that's away from the main branch. And I would say stick with the main branch. Every once in a while, maybe pull those characters that are on the other side quest away and actually run a game using those characters, but kind of like put those characters aside, almost like as if like you're playing a video game and you sent your followers off to do something. Like you can like do text rolls, like, hey, all right, enough time's passed, you're like doing yada yada, can you give me some rolls for this to get information on that? And it almost makes it like a smaller mini game. And in the meantime, in the interim, while you're playing with the main group, have those players who were originally playing the characters that went off, have them drop new characters that are there for the short term of however long. And I know Courtney is playing one of our home games, and she's doing exactly this with her goblin character, Alferis. He's gone, learning to be the best bard ever. And she's playing a different character in the interim. And then in both situations, when you bring them back together, it's going to depend on how much time has elapsed and stuff like that. But, you can pretty easily kind of converge it back together, because at the end of the day, as a GM, like what routes can be put in front of your players to bring them back together, or in that sort of thing. And you can kind of guide them by slowly taking your plot elements and putting them closer together. And so, like, while I don't have a concrete example of this, here's what I will say is, like, let's say you're playing a classic D&D game, right? And you're trying to reach the Black Castle, and you have path A, B, or C. Your players don't have to, like, and your players pick path B. And maybe originally you didn't have the castle on path B, but they don't know that. So what I'm saying is you can shuffle your plot elements around. You can shuffle points of interest that would slowly start to intercede and weave your characters back together. And so when done well, it's really exciting, and you can weave tales in and out, and it makes the player connection to their character way stronger. And it makes the world feel more alive when you can do that. But it does take some practice, and I actually would suggest, before you do that, try having a game where you let your players split up in game, but maybe not getting too far away from each other. The easiest thing is always when they start going shopping, right? So you start going 5 minutes with this group, and then you say, all right, after you leave them on a cliffhanger after 5 minutes, or where they need to parcel out a decision or whatever, go to the next group for 5 minutes. And then as you're doing that, slowly start to put little plot elements in between the two, because they're close enough that they're going to come back together on their own when they kind of find something more interesting, like that plot element. And you can start playing with these plot elements as you get better, when they're really close together, and how you can use that to kind of tie them in. And as you get better at that, you can take a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger. I hope that kind of answers your question. A little vague, but
no, it definitely did. I will say, adding for players is make it easier on your DM. I feel like some players will, like you were saying, sometimes it's herding cats. To make it a little easier and maybe honestly more fun for the party too, and yourself in the whole scheme of it. Try not to force yourself to be staying out of the party. I know, at least from kind of I guess I listen to YouTube, there's some times where people try to separate from continuously try to separate themselves. If you know what I mean, they'll continuously try to be separate from the party. And it's I get it, you want to do your story and everything, but at the same time, I don't know. It's a coming together. It's a story in a sense. It's a whole book or a whole world. Don't just for players, just try to not continuously try to separate yourself. Obviously, sometimes it'll just happen. Make sure it's natural. Just don't force it to happen.
Right.
I always think it's fun when players have their own individual quest that they really want to pursue, and they have the whole group buy into it, and they all go together. Because then you're still pursuing your thing, but the whole group's joining you. I'm in the middle of that with our home game right now, is getting people to buy into my quest.
Yeah. And you guys are in a way kind of in that right now.
Yeah.
I mean, once you find the Sunmaker, it's going to be really, you all have different points of interest involving the Sunmaker. Clive now has an interest in the Sunmaker's affiliation with the Shrine Cross. Atlas has it needing to bring back the Sunmaker alive or dead, and you have it in as a friend and also trying to find out what happened to him. So it'll be interesting watching you guys kind of parse that out. I don't know if you guys noticed, but we are at about an hour.
Yeah.
And so I think that this might be a good place to probably cap this Q&A. And so, what do you guys think?
Yeah, that sounds great. This was fun.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I learned a lot.
All right.
So I'm happy.
We tried.
I mean, we learned a lot about your pride.
Yeah. Or
Okay.
your vulnerabilities.
I will say, if people don't like Atlas right now, if people are like Courtney, right, in the audience, if people are like Courtney, who are just seeing his pride, the prideful side of his nature, right? Like an Escanorish kind of thing. But basically, I will say, obviously I'm not going to promise this because I can't tell what the audience wants or feels, but I will say I think people will start, the people that are on Courtney's side with this, people will start to actually see Atlas as someone they actually like, or like as a character.
We shall see.
Yep.
We shall see. Indeed. And with that, bring the Q&A to an end, and we hope that the start of your new year is great. It's probably mediocre, but great. And we will see you again in February, where we pick up back on the action.
All right.
Until
see
next
you
time.
later. Bye.
All right. See you guys.
Do I just stop it?
Thank you for listening to this episode of Starlight. If you enjoyed this, please like, share, subscribe. For early releases, exclusive RPG content, and other bonus material, check us out on Patreon at patreon.com/starlightadventures. And to reach us for questions to be aired, email us at thestarlightadventures@gmail.com. See you next Tuesday, Spacers.